Hey there, America. Let's talk about debt, baby. Not the kind you rack up on late-night online shopping sprees. Though those are fun to dissect too. We're talking about the big kahuna, the granddaddy of all IOUs, the US national debt. Now, I know what you're thinking. Debt? That sounds about as exciting as watching paint dry. But trust me on this one, folks. We're talking trillions with a T in the hole. That's enough dough to make Scrooge McDuck blush. So, why should you care? Well, imagine this massive debt as a giant inflatable gorilla on America's back. Sure, we can try to ignore it, pretend it's not there. But eventually, that gorilla's gonna start demanding snacks. And guess who's footing the bill? Yep, you guessed it, taxpayers like you and me. This ain't about fear-mongering, it's about facing reality. We've got a debt problem, and like a bad rash, ignoring it won't make it go away.
How did we end up in this financial pickle? Was it a sudden plunge into the red, or a slow descent into debt-ridden madness? The answer is a bit of both. Our national debt story is as old as America itself. We started by racking up debt during the Revolutionary War. Wars, recessions, and government spending added to the pile of IOUs. Post-World War II saw a spike in debt as we rebuilt and fought the Cold War. The 2008 financial crisis and COVID-19 pandemic caused massive government spending, ballooning the debt.
All right, time for a little math, but don't worry, I'll keep it as painless as possible. When we talk about the national debt, we're talking about two key figures, nominal debt and debt to GDP ratio. Nominal debt is the total amount of money the US government owes to its creditors. The debt to GDP ratio compares the size of the debt to the size of the economy. It's like comparing your credit card debt to your annual salary. The US debt to GDP ratio has been on the rise for years, hitting record highs. This means our debt is growing faster than our economy, which is about as sustainable as a house of cards in a hurricane. Section 4, the interest monster feeding the beast. Now, let's talk about interest, that pesky little fee that creditors love and debtors loathe. When you're dealing with trillions of dollars in debt, even a small interest rate can add up to a mountain of money. Think of it like this. Imagine the national debt as a giant, insatiable monster. And what does this monster crave more than anything? That's right, interest payments. Every year we have to shovel billions, if not trillions of dollars into the monster's gaping maw just to keep it from going on a rampage. This is money that could be used for other things like education, infrastructure, or even, dare I say, reducing the debt itself. But instead it's being gobbled up by the insatiable interest monster, leaving less and less for everything else. And here's the kicker. As the debt grows, so too does the interest we have to pay. It's a vicious cycle that's only going to get worse unless we do something about it. Imagine that monster getting bigger and hungrier every year. Makes you want to invest in some industrial strength antacids, doesn't it?
Section 5. Uncle Sam's IOUs. Who owns America? So, we've established that America owes a whole lot of money. But have you ever stopped to wonder who we're actually in debt to? Well, buckle up, Buttercup, because it's time to meet Uncle Sam's creditors. First up, we've got the usual suspects, China and Japan, holding trillions in US Treasury securities. Next, we've got a whole host of countries, from Ireland to the Cayman Islands. You know, those tropical paradises built on, wait for it, Yos debt. Irony, thy name is globalization. And let's not forget about good old domestic investors like individuals, pension funds, and even the Federal Reserve. That's right, folks. Even America is lending money to itself. It's like borrowing from your future self, except your future self is already drowning in debt and wondering why you spent your life savings on commemorative spoons. This tangled web of debt ownership raises some interesting questions. Does it give other countries leverage over US policies? Does it affect our economic independence? These are questions that economists and policymakers grapple with daily, and frankly, they keep me up at night.
Section 6. Getting out of the hole, a multi-pronged approach. Okay, so we've established that the US has a bit of a debt problem. But before you start building that underground bunker and hoarding canned goods, let's talk solutions. Because believe it or not, there are ways to tackle this behemoth. Think of it as a financial 12-step program, but instead of admitting you're powerless over debt, we're taking control. First up, we've got fiscal consolidation. Now, before you click away, this doesn't necessarily mean austerity measures that make everyone miserable. It's about smart spending cuts, eliminating waste, and making sure every taxpayer dollar is working as hard as a telemarketer on commission. Next, we have entitlement reform. Before you grab your pitchforks, let me explain. It's not about slashing benefits for those who need them most. It's about ensuring the long-term solvency of programs like Social Security and Medicare, so they're there for future generations, not just future debt collectors. And of course, we can't forget about economic growth. A robust economy means more tax revenue, which can be used to pay down debt. This means investing in education, infrastructure, and innovation, the building blocks of a thriving economy. It also means creating a business-friendly environment that encourages investment and job creation.
Section 7, Balancing Act Growth and Responsibility. So there you have it, folks. The US national debt, a complex, multifaceted issue that's been decades in the making. But like any good problem, it's not insurmountable. The key is to strike a balance between economic growth and fiscal responsibility. We need to invest in our future while also being mindful of our spending. We need to ensure that our children and grandchildren inherit a strong and prosperous nation, not just a mountain of IOUs. It's a delicate dance, to be sure, but one that we must master if we want to secure a bright future for America. So, let's put on our dancing shoes, folks, and get to work. Because the fate of our nation and our wallets depends on it. And frankly, I'd rather not have to explain to future generations why their inheritance went to paying off interest on a debt they didn't create. That's a conversation even I'm not witty enough to make entertaining.